Evan never expected his life to fracture in a single morning, but Megan's sudden resignation cracked everything open. She walked out without warning, leaving behind a silence sharp enough to split the air in his mother's office. Her final words, claiming she acted for us, echoed through Evan's mind like a warning he failed to recognize. The company staggered instantly, clients waiting, deadlines collapsing, and tension twisting through every corner of the building. Evan felt the shift before he understood it, a slow pull into a storm he never saw coming. Megan quit on the busiest week of the quarter, and the shock spread through the office like a crack in glass. She left her desk half open, files scattered, and the company laptop zipped inside her bag as if it belonged to her. No email. No handover. No explanation beyond the vague claim that Evan needed to be freed from his mother's expectations. The staff froze when they realized her projects were abandoned because Megan handled high-value clients and complex reports. Deadlines were stacked like dominoes, ready to fall, and everyone felt the impact within minutes. Evan tried to calm the chaos, but his voice shook as he opened Megan's calendar and found weeks of critical work unfinished. Every missing document was a new hole in the schedule, and every unanswered message pointed to a reckless choice she didn't regret. He called Megan, hopping for clarity, but she answered with a tone that chilled him more than the situation itself. She said she had finally done something brave, something he would thank her for later, as if destroying workflow was a gift. Evan realized she hadn't considered the consequences, or worse, she simply didn't care. His mother walked into the room with a face carved from disbelief, and Evan knew this would become more than a personnel issue. Megan had taken proprietary data, client notes, and confidential drafts, all stored on the company-issued laptop she refused to return. The IT team confirmed that her login was still active, and several files had been accessed shortly after she walked out. Evan felt his stomach tighten, because this wasn't forgetfulness or a misunderstanding. It was deliberate. He scrolled through Megan's messages from the past week, searching for signs, but everything looked normal until the morning she quit. She had been cheerful, affectionate, and strangely calm, a calm that now felt like the silence before an explosion. Clients began calling within hours, confused about canceled meetings and waiting for materials Megan never completed. Evan apologized repeatedly, patching problems as fast as he could, but the damage kept widening like a leak in a dam. His mother insisted on professionalism, reminding him that sentiment couldn't override policy or protocol. She drafted a formal notice demanding that Megan return all company property, including the laptop and sensitive documents. Evan read the letter twice, feeling torn between duty and the painful realization that Megan had crossed a line he couldn't defend. He knew she would take the notice personally, but he also knew there was no alternative. The company depended on structure, and Megan's exit had already broken too many rules to ignore. When he finally sent the document, a heavy quiet settled over him, the kind that comes when a truth becomes undeniable. Megan had created a problem he could no longer shield her from, and the fallout had only just begun. Evan told his mother everything, hopping for a measured response, but she reacted with firm and immediate resolve. She said company rules applied to everyone, and Megan was no exception, no matter her connection to the family. The formal notice went out within the hour, crisp and professional, demanding the return of all company assets. Evan felt uneasy as he imagined Megan reading it, but policy left no room for emotional negotiation or leniency. Employees whispered in the hallway, trying to make sense of the sudden rupture between Megan and the firm. Some were sympathetic, others frustrated, but all understood the mess she had left behind in her wake. The pressure built as clients continued calling, asking why their materials weren't ready and where Megan had disappeared too. Evan filled every gap he could, but exhaustion crept into his voice as he repeated explanations he barely believed himself. By late afternoon, Megan stormed into the lobby with the intensity of a thunderstorm rolling in too fast to outrun. Her eyes flashed with anger the moment she saw Evan, and her footsteps echoed like accusations across the polished floor. She held the notice in her hand, crumpled and wrinkled, as if she had squeezed it until her frustration took physical form. She accused Evan of betrayal, insisting he should have defended her instead of letting his mother humiliate her. Evan tried to explain, but she talked over him, her voice rising high enough for the entire office to hear. Employees froze at their desks, pretending to work while listening to the argument spill across the open room. Megan claimed the laptop was hers because she had earned it through late nights and stressful deadlines. She said the company owed her more than a polite demand, and that she had sacrificed too much to be treated like a thief. Evan reminded her that the data inside the laptop wasn't hers to keep, and the company couldn't ignore the breach. The moment he mentioned the files she accessed after quitting, her expression shifted from fury to defensive indignation. She accused him of spying on her, twisting the narrative until she looked like the victim of some imagined conspiracy. Evan stood firm, though his voice trembled, because this confrontation wasn't the one he had ever wanted to face. His mother watched from the doorway, posture straight, refusing to engage until Megan finished her tirade. When she finally stepped forward, her tone was calm but edged with steel, the voice of someone who had led a company for decades. She told Megan that emotions didn't override security protocols and that the return of the laptop wasn't negotiable. Megan's anger exploded at the idea of being spoken to like an employee instead of a future daughter-in-law. She shouted that the company was toxic and accused Evan's mother of manipulating him for years. The outburst grew louder, sharp enough to rattle even those used to high-pressure environments. Security approached at a respectful distance, unsure whether to intervene or wait for Evan's signal. Evan realized the situation wasn't a misunderstanding, but a deliberate attack on boundaries Megan refused to accept. When she finally stormed out of the building, the room exhaled as if it had been holding its breath since she arrived. Evan watched her leave with a sinking feeling, knowing that this clash had revealed something deeper and darker. Megan hadn't just walked away from the job. She had declared war, and the fallout was only beginning. Within hours of leaving the office, Megan took her campaign online, posting accusations against the company and Evan's mother. Her social media exploded with claims of mistreatment, corruption, and dishonesty, all carefully worded to appear credible. Clients began questioning invoices, contracts, and project deadlines, unsure who to trust after Megan's posts went live. Evan watched in disbelief as notifications of angry messages, phone calls, and emails flooded his inbox without pause. She didn't stop at posts. She sent emails from the company laptop, forging signatures and offering deals to top clients to switch to competitors. The IT department immediately flagged the accounts, tracing the IP addresses back to her, confirming deliberate tampering. Evan felt a pit in his stomach as he realized this was no longer about resignation or anger. This was targeted sabotage. Megan continued to post screenshots of internal conversations, selectively edited to make the company appear unprofessional. Each post seemed timed to maximize disruption, hitting social media during business hours to ensure maximum exposure. Clients reacted quickly, some canceling meetings, others demanding explanations, while competitors quietly received invitations. The legal teams scrambled to document every action, knowing each digital trace could become critical evidence. Evan tried contacting Megan again, hoping for a rational discussion, but her responses were vague threats, laced with pride. She claimed the company deserved to feel the consequences of its actions, and that she was the only one brave enough to deliver them. Meanwhile, employees grew anxious, worried that Megan might escalate further or misuse sensitive data. The IT logs revealed her attempts to access restricted folders, download client databases, and manipulate documents. Evan felt the weight of responsibility, knowing he had to act quickly to protect the company and its clients. He coordinated with legal counsel to issue cease and desist notices, while simultaneously informing clients about potential misinformation. Despite the efforts, some damage had already occurred, as rumors spread faster than clarifications could reach people. Megan framed herself as a whistleblower, posting videos and long threads describing her supposed heroic stand against the company. Her narrative painted Evan as indifferent, cold, and complicit in mistreatment, further straining his personal relationships. The more he tried to respond professionally, the more she twisted words and evidence to fit her story. Evan began to realize that her attack was strategic, targeting both emotional and financial vulnerabilities. Every post, email, and public statement seemed designed to destabilize the company's reputation entirely. The team worked long hours monitoring systems, tracking unauthorized access, and preparing legal documentation. Each discovery revealed more deliberate manipulation, from altered invoices to false client promises. Evan could feel the tension building like a storm about to break, knowing Megan's actions could have lasting consequences. He understood that containing her influence required meticulous record-keeping, constant vigilance, and swift legal action. Megan, however, showed no sign of stopping, posting almost hourly, ensuring that the company remained in a constant state of crisis. Evan realized that the fight had moved beyond the office walls, turning the digital world into a battlefield where every message mattered. The magnitude of her sabotage became painfully clear. This was no longer a breakup or a job dispute. It was an all-out assault on the company, its clients, and Evan himself, executed with precision and emotional intensity. Every notification on his phone felt like a ticking clock, counting down to the next crisis Megan had orchestrated. Evan knew the company's survival depended on documenting everything and preparing for the inevitable legal consequences. The storm was here, and Megan had made it personal. Evan returned home exhausted, knowing the company could survive, but his personal life had fractured completely. He sat down and made a decision that had been building for days. The engagement was over. Megan had crossed a line he could never forgive, and the illusion of love could no longer shield him from reality. He texted her once, clearly stating his choice, and then turned off his phone to avoid immediate retaliation. It didn't take long for her response to arrive, fueled with rage and disbelief. She refused to accept the breakup, claiming he had abandoned her when she needed him most. Within hours, Megan showed up at his house with friends, their presence aggressive, demanding he choose a side. Evan stood firm, shutting the door on the confrontation and refusing to engage in threats or manipulation. Megan banged on the door, shouting, accusing him of betrayal and making false claims about his loyalty. She posted live videos online, showing herself and her friends at Evan's home, spinning the story as if he were the villain. Her audience grew rapidly, feeding on every exaggeration and distorted fact she presented. Megan began sending edited messages and screenshots, carefully removing context to make her narrative convincing. She also used client information she had taken to undercut the company, offering the same services at lower prices. Evan's phone buzzed constantly, messages from worried clients asking about her offers and the truth behind her claims. The emotional pressure was relentless, and the stress began affecting Evan's sleep and concentration. Megan escalated by emailing her version of events to their mutual acquaintances, ensuring gossip spread widely. She framed herself as the betrayed fiancée, turning social perception against Evan to gain sympathy and support. Friends and family reached out, confused and concerned, unsure whom to trust amidst the chaos she had created. Despite the attacks, Evan maintained professionalism in all communications, documenting every incident carefully. He refused to engage publicly, knowing any reaction could be twisted into more ammunition for her campaign. Megan's posts continued daily, combining personal attacks with business sabotage, blurring the lines between revenge and obsession. She even claimed the breakup had caused her financial and emotional suffering, positioning herself as a victim in multiple narratives. Evan's mother warned him not to underestimate the consequences of her online activity and offline harassment. The pressure mounted as Evan realized Megan's retaliation was both personal and strategic, targeting him and the company simultaneously. She sent anonymous tips to industry contacts, spreading misinformation to damage professional relationships. Every attempt to clarify or counter her claims was met with further distortion, creating a cycle of escalating conflict. Evan began preparing for legal intervention, recognizing that documentation of every interaction would be crucial. Megan's obsession with control and revenge left no space for reconciliation or reason. She continued to exploit personal and professional connections, ensuring her reach extended beyond the office. The breakup had triggered a calculated campaign of retaliation that left Evan feeling cornered and constantly vigilant. He realized the only way to survive was to separate completely, legally and emotionally, from Megan's influence. Her attacks were relentless, but Evan knew that maintaining clarity and evidence was his strongest defense. Megan, meanwhile, showed no sign of stopping, fully invested in punishing him for rejecting her. Every text, post, and visit reinforced that this was no longer a personal conflict. It was a sustained war of manipulation. Evan braced himself, understanding that the road ahead would require patience, legal action, and complete emotional detachment. Megan's wrath had turned private heartbreak into public spectacle, leaving Evan with no choice but to fight strategically. Megan's attacks grew bolder as the days passed, showing no sign of slowing down or regret. She continued using company documents to approach clients, offering lower rates and falsely claiming authorization. The legal team traced every email, every message, and every edited screenshot, building an undeniable record. Her attempts to gain employment at rival firms failed when background checks revealed inconsistencies and misuse of data. Anger and frustration drove her further, and she began targeting Evan's family directly, showing up unannounced. One night, she appeared at his mother's house, intoxicated, shouting accusations loud enough for neighbors to call authorities. Police arrived to mediate, but Megan refused to leave, her words laced with venom and false claims. The situation escalated further when she attempted to enter the office at 2 a.m, bypassing security doors. The alarm system triggered immediately, alerting both Evan and local law enforcement, confirming her intent to breach. Security footage captured every moment, leaving no doubt about her actions or the threat she posed. Megan claimed she needed to retrieve what was hers, but her behavior indicated a clear pattern of trespass and theft. She was taken into custody that night, facing charges for breaking and entering and attempted theft of company property. Evan felt a mixture of relief and anxiety, knowing this would likely trigger legal battles, but necessary for safety. Her online attacks didn't cease, even from the police station, as she continued posting false statements and edited evidence. Megan's pattern of revenge revealed a methodical escalation from harassment to outright criminal behavior. Her friends and associates began distancing themselves as the legal consequences became real and unavoidable. Meanwhile, the company worked tirelessly to repair relationships with clients, explaining the situation carefully and professionally. Evan provided detailed documentation of every email, post, and breach, ensuring legal authorities had a complete record. Megan's actions had not only targeted him personally, but jeopardized the company's reputation and financial stability. The combination of social, emotional, and legal pressure forced her into increasingly reckless decisions. Each failed attempt to manipulate outcomes only intensified her desperation and erratic behavior. When she was formally charged, the severity of her offenses became public, further isolating her socially and professionally. Her attempts at persuasion and intimidation now carried legal consequences she could not ignore. Megan's emotional volatility had turned into criminal acts, creating a trail of evidence too long to dispute. She remained defiant in court filings, claiming her actions were justified, but the documentation contradicted every claim. Evan continued to support the legal process, providing testimony and ensuring client data was fully protected. The company strengthened internal security, implementing stricter protocols to prevent future breaches. Megan's story became a cautionary tale for employees, illustrating the consequences of revenge and misuse of information. As authorities moved forward, she faced both civil and criminal ramifications for her actions. The escalation from workplace conflict to criminal charges highlighted the severity of unchecked retaliation. Evan and his mother remained focused on recovery, emphasizing professionalism and transparency to rebuild trust. Megan's destructive behavior served as a turning point, underscoring the importance of boundaries and accountability. Even as legal proceedings progressed, the emotional and reputational fallout continued to challenge all involved. Her inability to control impulses had led to criminal charges, social isolation, and professional ruin. Evan realized that surviving this ordeal required patience, diligence, and unwavering adherence to the law. Every document, every video, every witness statement contributed to a clear picture of her misconduct. Megan's descent from anger to criminal activity left no room for reconciliation, only legal resolution. The company endured, clients remained loyal, and Evan prepared for the final legal reckoning that would conclude her campaign of chaos. Megan faced the courtroom for the first time with a mix of anger and defiance, refusing to admit wrongdoing. The charges included criminal trespass, theft, and unauthorized use of company property, each supported by evidence. Evan and his mother attended, prepared to testify about the timeline and the damages caused by her actions. The prosecution presented emails, security footage, and digital logs proving Megan accessed client files without permission. Her social media posts were introduced as evidence, showing intent to damage the company and defame Evan's family. Witnesses confirmed Megan's appearance at the house and office, her threats, and the disruption she caused. Despite her protests, the judge emphasized the seriousness of breaching both trust and the law. Megan's lawyer argued for leniency, highlighting emotional stress and claims of acting for Evan, but the court remained skeptical. The criminal case concluded with Megan receiving probation, community service, and strict no-contact orders toward Evan and his family. She was required to surrender all company devices and cease any use of client information immediately. Civil proceedings followed, focusing on the financial damage and breach of contract caused by her actions. Every forged email, edited message, and client diversion was documented meticulously and presented in court. Evan and his mother testified, detailing both the professional and personal harm inflicted by Megan's campaign. The judge ruled in favor of the company, ordering Megan to pay a total of $40,000 in damages. She was also required to return the company laptop, which she had previously pawned, and the engagement ring she had taken. Attempts to downplay or dispute her responsibility were rejected, as evidence demonstrated deliberate misconduct. Megan's social media accounts were monitored, and any further harassment could trigger additional legal consequences. The verdict marked a complete legal defeat for her, leaving her with financial obligations and a tarnished record. Evan felt a mix of relief and closure, knowing justice had been served, but the scars of the ordeal remained. The company could now rebuild its reputation, with clients reassured by transparency and thorough documentation. Employees gained confidence as order returned, and protocols were reinforced to prevent similar breaches. Megan, however, faced a harsh reality, unable to secure employment due to her record and reputation. Her family relationships strained, friends distanced themselves, and she confronted the consequences of her own choices. Evan reflected on the ordeal, understanding the limits of loyalty and the dangers of actions taken under self-justified motives. He realized that protection and boundaries were necessary, even in personal relationships intertwined with business. The legal resolution brought financial closure, but could not erase the emotional turmoil Megan had caused. She now had to navigate a future constrained by the repercussions of her misconduct. Evan and his mother focused on moving forward, reinforcing the company's values and strengthening professional integrity. The court proceedings served as a public record of accountability, showing that reckless revenge carries real consequences. Megan's defeat was total, legally, financially, and socially, leaving her isolated and compelled to confront her choices. Evan used the experience to grow personally and professionally, learning the importance of vigilance and ethical boundaries. The case became a lesson for employees, emphasizing the value of clear rules and firm enforcement to protect the company. Megan's actions, once a personal betrayal, became a cautionary example of how destructive unchecked behavior can be. The legal system affirmed that personal grievances do not justify criminal or unethical conduct. Evan's family, though shaken, emerged stronger, committed to transparency, fairness, and rebuilding trust with clients. Megan's path forward was uncertain, marked by legal obligations, limited opportunities, and social isolation. Evan, however, could finally focus on recovery, knowing that the storm of deception and sabotage had ended. Justice restored order, reinforced accountability, and allowed the family and company to move toward stability and growth. Evan slowly rebuilt his life, focusing on family, work, and restoring trust with clients. The company thrived, gaining respect for transparency and resilience after the crisis. Employees felt secure, knowing policies were enforced and boundaries respected. Clients returned, reassured by professionalism and the clear separation of personal conflicts from business. Megan, meanwhile, struggled with unemployment, legal debts, and social isolation. Her reputation suffered, and most companies refused to hire her due to her record. She lived under strict probation rules, with limited freedom and constant oversight. Her attempts to reconnect or retaliate were blocked legally and socially. Evan reflected on the lessons learned. Loyalty does not excuse manipulation or control. He realized that those who claim to act for you, without consent, often act for themselves. Trust and boundaries became his guiding principles in both business and personal life. The family healed, stronger and closer, united by shared adversity and transparency. Megan's downfall served as a cautionary tale, showing the consequences of revenge and deceit. Evan moved forward with clarity, resilience, and a renewed sense of purpose. The storm had passed, leaving stability, growth, and hard-earned peace in its wake.